So he's gone.
Yeah. Right. And
And then have the Councilmember Meyer and Kimberly.
ready? Is it working? Okay, so we're okay? Okay. You guys ready? Good evening and welcome to the March 25th, 2019 meeting of the City Council, Shawnee City Council. I would ask that you please silence your electronic devices at this time. I am Councilmember Mickey Sandifer, Councilmember for Ward 4, Mayor Michelle Disler, and Councilmember Myers and Councilmember Kimling are absent tonight, so I will be chairing this meeting. At this time, I'll do a roll call. Councilmember Zimmerman.
Present.
Councilmember Neighbor.
Present.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Present.
Councilmember Kimberly is absent. Councilmember Myers is absent. Councilmember Larson Benel.
Present.
Councilmember Constance.
Present.
Thank you. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, I will explain our procedures for public input. During the meeting, I will offer an opportunity for public input. If you would like to speak to the council at any of those times, please come forward to the microphone. I will ask that you state your name and address for the record. Then you may offer your comments. So that members of the audience can hear your comments, I would ask that you speak directly into the microphone. By policy, comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no person may speak more than twice to any one agenda item. After you are finished, please sign the form on the podium to ensure that we have accurate records of your name and address. In addition, while we won't do a roll call vote on every vote, I will state council members' names who vote in the minority so that our listening audience will have a clear and accurate record for the vote. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items that they want to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second on this item. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is mayor's items. We do not have any tonight. The next item on the agenda is business from the floor. Is there anyone who has comments on an issue that is not on tonight's agenda? The next item on the agenda are public items. Item number 1 is to consider adopting resolution number 1874, amending resolutions number 1836 and 1848 related to the intent to issue private activity revenue bonds for the ServiceMaster DSI project. On March 26, 2018, the governing body adopted resolution number 1836, which was amended by resolution number 1848 to increase the amount of the IRBs to $4,500,000. The company has requested the extension until July 12, 2019 in order to complete the project. The resolution is required. The recommended action is to consider adopting resolution number 1874. Does any of the council have any questions? Does anyone from the audience like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion.
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made and a second on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 2 is to consider approving final plans and adopting resolution number 1875 and ordinance number 3262 in order to acquire private property related to the Blackfish and Hauser Street Area Storm Drainage Improvement Project, TN 3467. Final plans are complete and staff has identified easements that are needed in order to construct the project. A resolution and ordinance are required to begin the condemnation process while continuing to work to obtain the outstanding easements. Staff is also requesting approval of the final plans and authorization to proceed with bidding the project. There are 3 recommended actions to consider. The first recommended action is to consider approving the final plans and authorizing staff to bid the project. Does any of the council have any questions?
Yeah, can we talk to Doug just briefly here? Hi, Doug, just looking for some extra info here. In looking this thing over, we're talking about $8 million for this project. Is that what I read?
No, this is one of those 6 projects that are within the $8 million bond project. So there are
How many projects we got within the $8 million?
6.
Okay, 6 projects. This is one of them.
This is one of them, yes.
So I saw some pretty big culverts and things like that, pretty big box culverts we're having and stuff. But wow, $8 million, that was kind of pricey. I didn't pick up on the fact that it was part of 6. So.
Okay, there's 6.
Why can't we get any SMAC funding for these types of projects if they could fit within the stormwater drainage criteria?
What was the timing? The timing, right now, we couldn't have put these projects in. We found these projects as we were doing all our video investigation last year, looking through, and these are ones that we feel we're going to lose the road if we don't go ahead and get them repaired.
Okay, and that's all 6 of them are in that same kind of,
they're all in that category.
all in the red zone kind of thing?
They're all in major roads, and if we lose them, it's going to be more costly.
Okay, thanks, Doug. That was helpful. Appreciate it.
Is that it? Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak on this item? I'll accept the motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion that has been seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The second recommended action is to consider adopting resolution number 1875. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
So moved. Second.
The motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The final recommended action is to consider passing ordinance number 3262. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Hearing none.
If I can interrupt real quick, remember as the chair, you do not lose your right to vote. And this action is an ordinance that requires 5 votes.
Okay.
So if you're
Thank you. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak on this motion? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion.
so moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. The next item is from the Planning Commission meeting on March 4th, 2019. Item number 1 is to consider ordinance number 3263, amending chapter 17.45 TSQ Town Square and 17.51 Table of General Use Regulations of the Shawnee Municipal Code. The Planning Commission recommended 8-0 that the governing body approve the text amendments to chapter 17.45 and chapter 17.51 of the Shawnee Municipal Code. The proposal amendments would allow residential condominiums, multifamily, and townhomes in the Town Square zoning district and implement less restrictive minimum yard setback requirements to align with the downtown design guidelines. An ordinance is required. The recommended action is to consider passing ordinance 3263. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Mr. Jenkins?
Not really a question, just comments. This did come before the Downtown Partnership Council, and we discussed this for a number of meetings. And I think we got some good ideas there, some good concepts that will hopefully make that a reality down here on Neiman Road, on the Neiman Now project. So I think a lot of work went into it. Appreciate Doug and your staff back there in planning. You guys did a great job in trying to capture this, and the Planning Commission's worked hard on it as well. So hopefully this will be the catalyst to get to where we want to go.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this? Hearing none, I'd accept the motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? I'm an aye. Next item on the agenda are staff items. Item number 1 is to consider ordinance numbers 3264 to 3271 related to the adoption of the 2018 International Fire Codes and Construction Codes. Area cities have worked together over the last year to take a more regional code adoption approach by engaging the building community and reviewing the fire and construction codes in the effort to try to keep those codes similarly between jurisdictions. Staff has prepared ordinances that would adopt the most current nationally developed fire and construction codes with minor amendments. Chief Building Official Tyler Worth will make a presentation. Welcome, Tyler.
So my name is Tyler Worth, and I'm the Chief Building Official for the City of Shawnee. And I'm here just to go over a few things as far as the fire and construction codes go for the adoption of the 2018. The purpose of this presentation will to provide current code overviews. I'll kind of describe, recent staff events in the process for putting the codes together, for the amendments together, and then describe our review efforts as well. And then we will discuss a few of the new code provisions as we move forward. The current codes that Shawnee is currently under are the 2012 International Codes and then the 2011 National Electric Code. The Electric Code is under a different cycle than the rest of them. So the proposed codes that I'm proposing tonight are the 2018 International Fire Codes and Construction Codes, along with the 2017 National Electric Code. So most of the changes from the 2012 to the 18 were more clarification changes. They did a lot of reconstructing of the code books, moving things around. It kind of gives you a lot of the same results as the 2012 code does and the same requirements. It's just kind of a different way of looking at them. There are a few changes, some of them significant here, that we will go over shortly. In the process that ICC goes through for putting out the new codes, they're always looking at upgrading the safety regulations in those. And then they also recognize changes in technology. As new products are being used in the construction industry, they are incorporating that into the codes so that when we start seeing those in the field, we have some guidelines for those new technologies. And then they also provide up-to-date structural designs and provisions, and then more enhanced energy efficiency as well. So to kind of go over the Shawnee code review process, staff began in about December of 2017, shortly after the 2018 code books were available. We started going through the code books, kind of making notes of major changes, looking to see what has changed. We attended some training classes through Johnson County Contractors classes. They put on classes 2 times a year. In the past several classes that they've had have been focusing on the changes between the 2012 and 2018. The Johnson County Building Officials Association also set up a task force that Shawnee staff participated in. It's where all the building officials in Johnson County met, got together. We reviewed the codes ahead of time, and we met monthly to talk about each code separately. We talked about significant changes, possible amendments that needed to be made for our area. And this was kind of a process to get all the jurisdictions on the same page to come up with similar amendments to make it easier on the builders that build in multiple jurisdictions around here, so they're not trying to figure out which city are we in, what requirements are we under. We want to kind of be as similar as possible throughout the county. The fire marshals, they also set up a task force similar to the building officials where they met monthly to kind of go over the same process. And then the fire marshal and myself also participated in a metro-wide task force to go over that. So there were cities from the Missouri side as well as the Kansas side that were represented on that. And that committee kind of had the same goals as I discussed with the Johnson County building officials to just get a lot of eyes on the code, what all we need to do. And then we also set up a meeting just with Shawnee staff here at City Hall where we invited a lot of the builders that build in Shawnee frequently to come in and discuss our proposed amendments, any concerns that they have with our amendments, and get any feedback from them. So then we kind of took that consideration into the amendments that we have proposed here tonight. And then city staff also met with the Kansas City Home Builders Association one-on-one here at City Hall as well to kind of go over our amendments, any concerns that they had, and there are a couple concerns that they had that I will go over here shortly. But for the most part, we were able to kind of work through the issues and get on the same page. So that was kind of the purpose of that. And the Kansas City Home Builders Association was also they were at all of the Johnson County building officials, the committee meetings that we met at monthly. They were also represented there as well. So other jurisdictions that are moving to the 18, all of the Johnson County cities are moving to the 18 codes. Lenexa has already gone to council and got it passed, and theirs actually becomes effective April 1st of this year. Lee Summit has also done theirs as well with the April 1st, 2019 effective date. And then most of the other jurisdictions in Johnson County are looking at a July effective date, kind of like we are. I know Olathe is getting ready to go to council at their next council meeting, and then several of the other jurisdictions are. And so we're kind of right on the same timeline as they are. So to go over a few of the kind of hot topics with the building code. New to the 2018 IBC, the commercial code, it requires storm shelters to be installed in schools and emergency response buildings. This was not in the 2012, so this will be different moving forward. That'll affect any schools or emergency response buildings. And these storm shelters will have to be built per the ICC 500 document.
What's an emergency response building?
Like police and fire stations.
Okay.
And then moving on from that one, fire protection of lightweight floor framing. This lightweight floor framing is considered I-joists and open web trusses. There's a lot less meat per se on those, and so they burn up really quick. And so the code requires, if you install I-joist or the open web trusses, that you provide protection from fire on the underside of it. Typically this is seen in unfinished basements where they're not sheetrocking. Those are exposed, and if there's a fire in the basement, it can burn those up really quick, a lot quicker than your typical 2x10s, because there's not as much meat to them. And so there's not as much time for people to get out of the residence before the floor collapses, and then also firefighters that need to respond to that. There's not as much time for them to go in if they have to rescue somebody or to fight the fire. And this is not new for the 18 code or new to Shawnee. We are currently enforcing this now. The ways you can protect the underside of these I-joist or floor trusses are with a fire suppression system, a sprinkler system, or half-inch sheetrock, or 5/8 structural wood panel to go on the underside of this. And then moving on to ice damming protection, the International Residential Code has a table that we have to fill in when we adopt these codes that are kind of specific to the area where these are being adopted. And one of those items is ice damming protection. Currently, in the 2012 code, Shawnee has no written in that box, so we do not require ice damming protection. We are one of the few cities in Johnson County right now that does not require it. It is a very cheap membrane that is put down on the eaves and 2 feet into the conditioned space on the roof that protects any buildup of ice on the eaves. As the snow melts off the roof, it gets to these colder sections of the roof and refreezes and builds ice damming and causes water damage to the house, and it can cause a lot of significant damage. And it is that ice damming protection is called ice and water shield or ice underlayment. It is a very cheap product that they just put down instead of your typical felt. It's about $40 a roll compared to $20 a roll for the felt. No additional labor or anything. On my house, it took 3 rolls of the ice and water shield to do it. A lot of roofers will put this on, they tell me, just so they can sleep. It's a very good product that prevents damage to houses. And then arc fault circuit interrupters. These are breakers that go in your electrical panel. And anytime there's an arc in the wiring system, it will detect that and switch the breaker off, so that if there's an arc, there's not going to be a fire. So it's a very helpful protection for fires. This is not new to the code, but we had amended it in 2012, this section, to only require it in bedrooms. The reason that we amended it in 2012 is because the technology of these arc fault breakers, it was newer. They were having some issues with it with faulty trips. So motors such as like vacuums would trip these and it would be a nuisance. Over the past 6 years, the technology in these breakers has gotten a lot better. Builders that I talked to, the manufacturers of these arc fault breakers, they're just not seeing the nuisance trips anymore. They've upgraded their technology to make it better. And this requirement would not affect, like if you pulled a building permit, you would not be required to upgrade your existing breakers to arc fault, but any new circuits that you added to your home that were part of the building permit would require to be arc fault protected. There is a slight upcharge, about $30 more than your typical breaker, and you're looking about maybe 15 of those breakers in your house compared to what we require now, so about less than $500. And then without seeing the nuisance trips anymore, all the building officials in Johnson County think it's time to move to the more safe requirement in the building code. The next item here, heat detectors in the garage. This item is actually not in the code at all. This is something that Shawnee's staff feels is very important to safety when it comes to fire in a single-family house. The cost of adding a heat detector into the garage, the quotes that I've been getting from electricians is about $50 to $100 to install this. This heat detector will be hardwired and interconnected with the smoke alarm in the house. So if there's heat detected in the garage, then it will sound the alarm so that people in the house know that something's going on in the garage. The code right now requires a fire barrier between the garage and the house to prevent any spread to the house, but the garage doors are not fire rated. And so when there's a fire in the garage doors start going up and down because of faulty trips in the electrical wires. And there's a lot of bedrooms above the garages these days in these new 2-story houses. So the fire will just go right out those garage doors and into the second story really quick. And these heat detectors will be able to detect the fire really early in the process and warn the homeowners in the house to get out. Because a lot of times they are not notified of the fire until it's really big, starts breaking glass, loud noises, and at that point the fire is huge, and they go out to see what's going on, and it's already big. So you can help protect life and property with these for a very cheap price. It's not too hard to install. So Shawnee's staff feels that this would be a huge gain, and this would only be in brand new construction. It would not be required to be retroed in any way. Even if it's a permit that requires the upgrade of smoke detectors in the house, we wouldn't require it for the heat detector in the garage. This is just brand new construction.
Also doesn't work on a detached garage.
We would not require it on detached garage, no. Just because it's not connected to the actual residence itself. And then the other change for the energy code is the HERS rating, or the ERI index, energy rating index. In 2012, the HERS rating, or the ERI, was not in the code. Shawnee amended the code to allow for these HERS ratings. It's essentially an energy audit of your house. And we came up, and other jurisdictions did this as well, came up with the score that we were told by these HERS raters was similar to the prescriptive method of the code. If you followed all the energy requirements of the code, that this score on the HERS would be similar to doing the prescriptive method. And currently we are at 85. The lower the number, the more energy efficient your house is. For the 2018 codes, we are proposing to move that ERI score, the HERS rating score, to an 80. Really the only change in the prescriptive method of the code was the penetration of the glass. They lowered the number for the glass in your windows to be a little bit more energy efficient, but that was the only change. So we didn't feel like we needed to go really low with the HERS score. The HERS score that's actually for our area that's in the 2018 code is a 62. Now, we have made several amendments to that energy code that would bring that number back up. And we feel that that 80 score would be about the prescriptive method of our amended HERS in the residential code. Because one of the main amendments that we made in the energy code that we've done for a while is requiring less insulation in the walls of the house, because if we follow the prescriptive method of the code for insulation in the walls, you would have to be using 2x6 framing for your walls, which is an extreme cost. So we've backed down that insulation requirement in the walls so that people can still frame with 2x4 frame, which is the most common form. And then the next item is the pool barrier.
Okay, so I'm just with the 2018 codes as they're written and recommended from the international codes, the IECC. Did they recommend 60 or do they recommend 80? Are we amending from there?
Yeah, sorry, they recommended 62 for our area, and we are amending it to 80.
Okay.
Because of the other changes that we've made to the energy code to kind of fit our area and the type of construction. We've worked with the PERS Raiders or the ERI group, and they kind of came up with this 80 number for us, where they took the prescriptive method of the code plus our amendments and said this is about what the score would be at 80. And that's kind of where that number came from.
And is that what the other Johnson County cities are doing,
Yes,
the 80 score as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Everybody, for the most part, is looking at 80. Last they told me, they can always change it. But Lenexa, who has already gone through their process, is at 80, and that's what they adopted. So moving on to the pool barrier height. I bring this one up. The code requires a 4-foot barrier around pools. We have amended that because of an incident in 2016. It came back to the council to revisit the pool barrier height because there was a pool that was allowed to go in with just an automatic safety cover. And the 2018 code, as it's written, would allow just a safety cover. You don't have to have any fence around the pool, just a safety cover, which is something that you can walk on. You can, it protects the pool when it's closed. And the code recognizes that as an adequate barrier. I don't think that's the right way to go, but I am proposing that we move it from the 5-foot barrier to the 4-foot barrier as the code requires for a barrier in the 2012 edition. And then the 2018 code, if you don't do the automatic safety cover, then you have to have a 4-foot barrier. All the other jurisdictions in Johnson County are going with either the code as written to allow a 4-foot barrier or the automatic safety cover, but not both. Lenexa, when they got theirs, they will allow just the safety cover with no barrier. And then Johnson County, they currently allow just the safety cover with no barrier as well. But I would just like to amend it to require a 4-foot barrier around the pool with not the safety cover. The problem with the 5-foot fence that we require now is a lot of HOAs do not allow you to do a 5-foot fence. You can only have a 4-foot fence. And so that kind of puts them in a hard position. We do have the exception that you can have a 4-foot barrier if you do that automatic safety cover. But the automatic safety cover, even for a small pool, about the cheapest you're going to get is about $10,000 for one of these covers. They're very expensive, and staff here at Shawnee feels like the 4-foot barrier is a good level to be at. To be similar with everybody else in Johnson County, even nationwide, I don't know of anybody that has amended this to require a higher fence. Now, the code's a minimum standard on things, so that's what we're
There are some HOAs that don't allow fences at all, and I'm thinking about areas that maybe are on a golf course or something like that. So are we, in doing this, are we effectively saying if you live in Lenexa on a golf course, you can have a pool with an automatic cover and no fence, but not here in Shawnee?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to be clear. And have you received any feedback from the pool builders or homeowners about that question?
I have not from them. Like the groups that I met with with the Kansas City Home Builders Association, their comments to me were, if somebody can afford a pool, they can afford whatever requirements you want. That's kind of their stance.
Yeah, but it's not always about money in this case.
Right, yeah. So the groups that I had the conversations with, they didn't really have any input on it. And the home builders, they didn't bring up any of this to me, because several of them will put in pools when they have, when they're building a new home, they'll do it at the same time. But they didn't bring up any concerns with the 4-foot barrier.
Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins.
Well, just so you get some feedback from a pool owner, I have a 6-foot fence around my pool.
Uh-huh.
I did not buy the cover. It was expensive, and I thought it'd make a great leaf collector and stuff like that, because it kind of drops down into the pool. And I didn't want to have one, because if you bought one for an oddly shaped pool, like I have an Oasis, which is kind of a cool design and everything, you had to put it on top of the pool, so you'd have to have runners. I can see everybody stubbing their toes on the rail as they're trying to get to the pool, so we didn't do that. But we did build a 6-foot fence, and I think that's a good thing. And of course, homeowner associations who have these rules, but they don't supersede our regulations.
Correct.
And if I err in any way, I'm going to err on the side of safety. And I think 4 foot's really too low. Really, that's not really going to keep a kid out. I think when we were hearing this whole proposal last time, we had a number of people came in and talked about how it was so easy for a kid to just pull their tricycle up to the fence and climb over using that as a step stool to get over this 4 fence. 4 feet doesn't really provide much. And the big concern about the covers, because they are excellent. I'm not knocking it. They're great. They're expensive and they're great and they'll do the job as long as you cover it.
Exactly.
But then you open it up to human error. And you have, the phone rings, she goes inside, or he goes inside, whatever. They're on the phone. Next thing you know, spend a couple hours, oh shoot, kid fell in the pool and drowned. Because they can just walk right over and access it. So it's just too easy for bad things to happen.
Agreed, and that's exactly why I don't want to allow just that. I do want at least a barrier.
I mean, if every time it had some kind of sensor, and every time the people left the pool, it automatically closed itself, that probably would work, something like that. But unfortunately, human error is the mother of all accidents. So there you go, And the 4 foot barrier, it just isn't really. It doesn't provide much of a barrier, really. So I have concerns. I know the rest of the people on this council fought against me on that. I wanted 6. And they compromised to 5, so we talked between 6 and 4 that time. But I think that was at least 5 foot gave you an extra foot clearance for kids that are trying to get over the barrier. Young kids, and that's one we're most worried about.
And that's what it's designed to do.
The 6-footer isn't even going to stop teenagers or tweeners even, because they'll climb anything if they want to get over it. But concerned about the smaller children and having a barrier that's actually going to be effective. I'd still like to see a 6-foot barrier myself.
Anybody else? Is there anybody from the audience who'd like to speak on this?
I still got another slide.
Sorry. I thought you were done.
Okay, so just to go over some of the things in the fire code here real quick. Some of the kind of more major changes or amendments that we have are portable outdoor fireplaces. We want to amend by prohibiting outdoor fireplaces from being stored or used within 15 feet of a multifamily structure. And then mobile food truck preparation trucks has been added to the 2018 fire code, so there are requirements for mobile food trucks now, and they are required to be inspected yearly by our fire officials. They provide guidance on fire and life safety requirements for mobile food truck preparation. And Corey Sands, the fire marshal, has been working with other Johnson County fire marshals to go through and come up with checklists and inspection procedures for these food trucks, since these food trucks do kind of travel around to each one of these jurisdictions. And then domestic cooking systems. It's new to the code. It provides fire protection for domestic kitchen systems and I-1 and I-2 occupancies. Domestic kitchen cooktops that are installed in these occupancies need to be listed and tested not to ignite cooking oil. And then also attics. It requires, the 18 code requires attics in buildings over 55 feet above grade that having fuel-fired equipment installed or used as living units to be protected in the attics, the fire sprinkler systems. So if these, when the ordinances get passed underneath the new 2018 codes, anything that was submitted before that date will still be underneath the 2012 codes. And so I'll be around for any questions or discussions, and Corey Sands is available if there's anything on the fire codes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Just for my own knowledge, you talked to the AFCI circuits, and that sounds like a really good deal. And since my neighbor's next door burned down from an arcing of where they had to plug in the outlet, and so that obviously drives that concept home real well. As far as retrofitting, and this isn't requiring retrofitting, I know. Did you throw a number out? Was it $500 if you were going to go in there and have your box upgraded to these type of stuff?
Yeah, well, and that would be in addition to what we already require, because we already require the arc fault breakers in bedrooms. And so
you're talking GFI switches or something to that, right? Or is that arc breaker?
For bedrooms, it's arc fault. There are certain areas, like in kitchens or close to water, faucets, bathrooms, things like that that require the GFCI, the ground fault circuit interrupters. But the arc fault is a little bit different as far as detecting the arc in the wire. There's kind of two different safety levels, where the GFCI is more for water. If your hands are wet and you touch it, it's going to detect that sort of thing to shut off. It's not shocking. But yeah, so it's my estimate is about $500 on top of what's already required for the bedrooms, which is typically, you only got 4 or 5 of those to clean your home. So,
Mr. Zimmerman.
the only item that they really wanted to discuss was the arc fault breakers, and that was just one of the builders. They say that they still see the nuisance trips with that, and then talking with all the other builders, they do not see those nuisance trips. They also talked about the cost of it, that they didn't like to see. That was kind of the feedback that I got, and that was just one builder. The other builders, were telling me that they're just not seeing those nuisance trips anymore. In Olathe right now, they are required to have them in all the living spaces. So there are a lot more of those out there in Olathe, and they're just not seeing the problems that I'm hearing. They did have just a lot of questions about the heat detector. They didn't necessarily oppose it, but they had a lot of questions about kind of how it worked and what our requirements were, and we went over that, and they seemed okay with it. They didn't have any problems with that as well. And then, other than that, they didn't really have a whole lot to say. I invited, I think, almost 40 builders. I only had 6 that showed up that really showed any interest. So.
Wow. All right, thank you. Good answers.
Anybody else? Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this? Hearing none, I would accept a motion. I don't need a motion on this, do I? Yeah, I do. I do. Okay. Each ordinance will require an approval. There are 8 recommended actions. The first recommended action is to consider passing an ordinance number 3264, adopting the 2018 International Fire Code with amendments. Is there any discussion from the council? Is there anyone from the audience like to speak on this? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and second has been given. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. The second recommended action is to consider passing ordinance number 3265, adopting the 2018 International Building Code with amendments. Is there any discussion from the council? Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. The third recommended action is to consider passing ordinance number 3266, adopting the 2017 National Electric Code with amendments. Is there any discussion from the council? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'd accept a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The fourth recommended action is to consider passing ordinance number 3267, adopting 2018 International Residential Code with amendments. Is there any discussion from the council? Is there anyone in the audience like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. The fifth recommended action is to consider passing ordinance number 3268, adopting the 2018 International Mechanical Code with amendments. Is there any discussion from the council? Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'd accept a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
I I have a motion and a second on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. The sixth recommended action is to consider passing ordinance number 3269, adopting the 2018 International Fuel Gas Code. Is there any discussion from the council? Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'd accept a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
I have a motion and a second on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The seventh recommended action is to consider passing ordinance number 3270, adopting the 2018 International Plumbing Code with amendments. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and second has been made on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. The eighth and final recommended action is to consider passing ordinance number 3271, adopting the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code with amendments. Is there any discussion from the council? Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 2 is to consider passing ordinance number 3272, amending various sections of Title 12 of the Shawnee Mission Codes related to right-of-way management and small cell aesthetics regulation. Revisions to Title 12 are proposed to regulate the aesthetics standards for small cell wireless installation. An ordinance is required. The recommended action is to consider passing ordinance number 3272. Is there any discussion from the council? Is there anyone in the audience like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The next item is on the agenda is miscellaneous items. Item number 1 is to ratify the semi-monthly claim for March 25th, 2019 in the amount of $3,797,304.43. Is there any discussion from the council? Is there anyone in the audience like to speak on this item? All those in favor, aye, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Are you naying?
No.
He's in
I'm mimicking.
a mind glitch.
Yeah,
Motion
mine goes-
passes.
Yeah.
Number 2, miscellaneous council items. Does anyone from the council have any items they'd like to discuss? Mr. Neighbor.
Even though I was not present for the St. Patrick's Day parade, it sounds like everybody had a good time. And the weather, we were in Washington, but I looked and the wind chill was 32 degrees. I thought, boy, that's not going to be comfortable. It sounds like, though it wasn't as bad as it sounded, and everybody had a good time. And thank you to everybody and all the volunteers that helped make that and all of our other events so popular and well attended.
Item number 3 is to consider closing City Hall on December 24th, 2019. In the past, the governing body has approved closing City Hall their city facilities on Christmas Eve and allowing employees the option to take a vacation day, comp day, or a day off without pay. Is there any discussion from council? What's that?
I would like to move to give them Christmas Eve off.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on this item. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. What did I do wrong?
Yeah, we did that.
Thought we did.
We did.
I don't think we had a motion for it, so I move to approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I thought we did because that's what I thought you nayed on.
Yeah.
No.
It's all good.
It's all good. Sorry.
Now, is there any other items anybody would like to discuss? Other than that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
A motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.